All right, hello. So, for my chosen topic of research, I chose to look at Saint-Saëns Clarinet Sonata in E flat major, opus 167, and compare the first two movements. I chose this topic in particular because I'm a clarinetist who has played this piece many times for studio. This is actually the piece I passed my level A on. And just as a note, since this piece is for a transposing instrument, all keys that are mentioned throughout this will be referred to in terms of the sounding pitch of the clarinet, not concert pitch. And also, I'll be playing a lot of these examples on my clarinet. I've been a little rusty since I finished my studio and performance requirements last semester, so just excuse any mistakes I might make. So, to start off, the Clarinet Sonata in E flat major was written by Camille Saint-Saëns, a French composer known for various works such as Piano Concerto No. 2, Symphony No. 3, and The Carnival of the Animals. This piece was written in 1921 and was one of his last works as he died later that year. So, first, I'll be discussing the first movement, which is titled Allegretto, and it follows A, B, A prime, A form. I included a color coded chart of sorts to give you a better idea of where each section lies. For the sake of time, we won't be listening to the whole piece, just bits and pieces, but I really encourage you to listen to it on your own time if you haven't already, because it's a great piece. So, yeah, here is the form chart. Feel free to pause. So the movement, which starts in the key of F major, immediately begins with the main motive, which is then repeated a major third higher. So I'll be playing that quick. So this type of rhythm, more specifically an idea that follows the quarter note plus eighth note pattern, is typical of Saint-Saëns and his works, but it's especially prominent in this movement. And then the continuation of this rhythm comprises the A section, which then carries out until measure 25. So now moving into the B section, the piano repeats the previous rhythmic motive in a two-measure solo in order to transition into this B section, likely used to emphasize the theme just presented in the A section. I don't have a piano in hand, so I'm just going to play it. Crescendo. Yeah. So immediately following the two-bar piano solo is the introduction of a brand new motive in the new B section. The melody is not the same through the three instances of this motive, but the rhythmic idea is, with some embellishments added in, such as the 16th note triplet run, as you can see here. Yeah, I'm gonna play that quick. Yeah, something you'll notice here is that Saint-Saëns was pretty strategic in how he specifically wrote this piece for clarinet, with certain register jumps every once in a while that are particularly idiomatic for the clarinet. For those who aren't familiar with the fingerings of a clarinet, in the first three octaves, two notes that are separated by the interval of a twelfth have nearly the same exact fingering. The only difference is the use of a register key. So, if you see here, I'll try my best to show this. Um, so right here we have C sharp, but if I were to hit the register key right here, you would get G sharp. It's also important to note that a stable key is difficult to establish in the B section, suggesting that it is atonal until at least the next section where there's a sudden switch into the key of D flat major. So this arpeggiated D flat triad plays a major role in bringing the movement back to tonality through the submediate key, which in my opinion is the most enticing feature of the movement. So here's how that sounds. I love that part. Now, moving into the final sections, these aren't touched upon as much since a lot of it is just a repeat of similar material from the beginning. The A and B sections are what I really wanted to focus on. But, anyways, the A prime section or the recapitulation reworks the original material and the existing motives briefly in the key of A minor, which can be determined through the temporary raising of that B flat. The movement then returns to the key of F major in the final A section, which is almost an exact repeat of the beginning, with the exception of the last few measures. So now we'll be moving into the second movement of this piece, which is vastly different in comparison to the first movement. Just like the last one, I provided a color-coded form chart to give you an idea of the form, which is in A prime. So feel free to pause if you want to read through that. And also similar to the first movement, the second movement jumps right into the main motive from the beginning, which we'll play. Yeah. Although there's no exact transposition from the first instance of the motive to the second, a pattern can be determined as leaps of the notes in a B flat major triad, which follows a descending motion. And then ascending arpeggios of B flat major and F7 chords, respectively, act as a transition into the next major motive pictured right here, which temporarily switches into the key of F major as shown by the raising of this E flat, which is now an E natural. So that's how this sounds. And then the A section ends with material that manages to incorporate themes of both previously mentioned motives, concluded by an arpeggiated B flat major triad. So the B section shows a vastly different approach with recurring leaps of the interval of a 12th. As mentioned earlier in the first movement, Saint-Saëns composed this piece to be played easily by a clarinetist. So remember what I explained earlier about the use of a register key. This is the same exact idea, just shown in a different motive. So this is how this sounds. And the same motive is repeated later on in the B section, but transposed up a minor third, so like this. So as was the same previously, the D sharp has the same fingerings as the G sharp, just with the register key. So this is the G sharp fingering, but when I add the register key, it's now D sharp. So you learn something new every day. So therefore, playing this piece on another instrument might prove to be a little bit more difficult, but for those who aren't familiar with the fingerings of the clarinet, I feel like this is pretty useful information to have. So in between these ideas are rapidly moving, ascending and descending triplets in the chords of B flat 7, B flat minor 7, B flat 7 again, and C sharp minor 7 respectively. A few different keys are implied in passing in the B section, however, the last 8 measures of this section pulls it back together into the key of B flat major and into the final A prime section. So the A prime section starts the same exact way as the beginning of the movement, and towards the end, material is reworked to create a satisfying ending, including these long triplet runs, and then an ascending B flat major arpeggio to finish it, so right here. So with this comparative analysis in mind, I thought it would be important to also consider the various compositional styles of Saint-Saëns. So something I noticed a lot in this piece is unresolved dissonances. In this really low quality example I grabbed from a YouTube video, you will see that this A flat 7 chord here does not properly resolve. The 7th of this chord, which is the enharmonic F sharp, does not resolve down to F natural. And remember, this here is not an F. This is a sounding E flat because we're working with a B flat instrument. The chord also never resolves to a D flat major chord. Instead, the D flats actually raise to a D natural eventually. And what's presented is a B diminished 7 chord. So that's just one thing to think about. And this type of unresolved chord style is similar to that of Erik Satie, specifically in his piece Sarabande No. 1, and Debussy and Ravel's Nocturne. I don't know how to pronounce that, where both pieces display the same sort of unresolved 7th and 9th chords, and I'm going to play some examples of that. So here is Debussy and Ravel's Nocturne. You'll notice a lot of unresolved 7th chords here. And then here is Satie's Sarabande. And that's it. I hope you guys can take away something from this presentation, and thank you for listening.